Welcome back to another episode of Financially Irresponsible. I'm your host, Rahkim Sabree, and I want to talk about some more serious topics. First off, being financial elder abuse. I have a banking background. I worked in banking for about a decade, and there was one area of focus that we repeatedly had to get training on, and that was financial elder abuse. And so examples of elder abuse kind of vary, especially in today's technological day and age. But previously, we noticed a trend with elders around how they chose or how they preferred to engage in their banking. Primarily, they would use checks to make payments, or they would be susceptible to some kind of scams and or different types of fraud. And so we were trained in that environment how to recognize signs of elder abuse and then the steps to take to intervene or to ask more targeted questions and helping address what we may have determined as an irregular pattern of activity. And so elder abuse, like I said, it looks differently for different people, but typically it can be simplified into an instance where an elder or elderly person who may or may not have some form of cognitive decline or just an altruistic kind of trusting perspective of the world and the people that they engage with are being taken advantage of financially. The front line of defense in elder abuse is going to be the elder themselves. So helping elderly individuals learn about the newer ways of banking, the newer scams and fraud that is existing and in circulation that targets that particular demographic is going to be super important. The second line of defense for elder abuse are going to be the close friends, family, other relatives that may be supporting the elder, and of course, banking professionals. So what's interesting about the second line of defense is that unfortunately, the individuals most likely to take advantage of an elder from a financial perspective is somebody that they know. So that could be a relative, a child, a grandchild, a friend, somebody who's considerably younger than them, who may recognize a pattern of behavior or an opportunity to take advantage of what assets that elderly individual may have accumulated over a long period of time and may not know what to do with. I think this is especially important to talk about in the age of social media, where there's so much information in circulation that can be harmful to the individual or individuals consuming it, based off of the fact that the individual circulating the information may not have had the appropriate financial training or understanding of products, services, and strategies that they might be recommending. On the other side of that, on the more malicious side of that, individuals specifically will give misinformation, particularly if they're in commission sales, so that they can win the sale. And so by coming off or presenting themselves as somebody of authority, as somebody of some level of expertise, as somebody with some level of credential that may or may not be a fiduciary credential, they can steer conversations in a certain direction, gaining the trust of elderly individuals who are looking to make some maybe decisions to get back on track or the best decisions for what it is that they've worked very hard for over the course of their lives. And in these instances, it's so unfortunate that the individuals who are looking to target the elderly are taking advantage of their lack of knowledge or their lack of resources by way of people that they can run these ideas or these strategies through to make a more informed decision. So in the banking world, as a banking employee, we were taught to recognize sometimes the pattern of behavior. So there may be an elderly customer who goes into the bank, they make a withdrawal of a specific amount, maybe once a week, maybe once every other week. And so that specific amount may not exceed a particular threshold. Maybe they're taking out cash so that they can go and do their groceries because they don't understand how the debit cards work. Or maybe they're taking out cash because they don't want to use credit cards. Or maybe they're coming in to reconcile their checkbooks. Whatever the case, there is a pattern of behavior where these elderly individuals will come into a bank and establish some kind of transaction. Well, one day that individual may come in and say, hey, instead of withdrawing my normal $200 for the week, I want to take out $10,000 or $15,000, some large amount that may raise a flag. And so upon further questioning, which bank employees are traditionally trained to do, they may uncover that this elderly individual is taking out this money so that they can help out a friend or so that they can help out some family member. And so upon further inspection, because the bank employees are typically trained to keep asking questions, especially in instances where there is suspicious or irregular activity, they may uncover that somebody contacted them online through an email and told them that they needed to do XYZ, send a certain amount of money in order to get more money in return. Or they needed to send some money because a relative was in trouble. I actually personally witnessed a scenario where an elderly person was contacted about either their child or their grandchild and told that they were in trouble with the IRS and that in order for them not to be arrested, that they needed to come up with a certain dollar amount within a certain time period. And of course, this individual rushes into the bank wanting to get this money so that they can take it out and pay what is actually a ransom, so that their child or their grandchild, whoever their loved one was, did not get arrested. We, upon further investigation, determined that it was a scam, that the individual who was supposedly in trouble was actually very safe, had no idea what was going on, because we reached out to that individual just to kind of make sure that everything was okay and to ease the nerves of the individual who came rushing in. But these scenarios take place and not everybody catches them. Certainly not all bank employees catch them. And in a world where there is mistrust with financial institutions, there can be a resistance or a reluctance for individuals coming in to perform particular or very specific banking types of transactions, to share the details around those transactions or around the why in doing those transactions. And so while it is not necessarily the responsibility of the bank employees to stop these instances, certainly there is an onus on those individuals to recognize what elder abuse can look like, who are typically candidates to perform elder abuse, and what is the pattern of behavior that may look irregular for individuals coming in. Now, there is an adult protective, the location is slipping my mind right now, but if you go onto the CFPB website, so cfpb.gov, and you search elder abuse, there is instructions for how you can document and report suspicions of elder abuse. In addition to that, individuals who may have been impacted by elder abuse are certainly encouraged to go and inform law enforcement so that if it's possible at all to retrieve or to recover some of the funds that have been kind of coerced out of the elders' care, that they can take appropriate steps to do that from a legal perspective. But going back into individuals who are most likely to take advantage of elders in an elder abuse situation, there's reference made to friends, family, or newer friends, family, or just somebody that the elder knows, somebody that the elder is comfortable with. And so in instances where we see power of attorney being established, or we see a random addition to a particular account type as an owner or as a beneficiary, those are some red flags that you can look at in determining, has the will been updated? Is there documentation that is drastically changing the direction of what decisions looked like versus what they look like today? And in those instances, suspicions of elder abuse are justifiable, although certainly not always true. Some individuals who may not have a beneficiary listed on their account or a co-owner listed on their account, or who may not have thought about how they wanted to direct their money in the event of their demise through wills or trust, may suddenly have a change of heart, or may decide that they want to be more aggressive in the way that they allocate their funds. Maybe they want to pull money from a particular cause or individual and funnel more of that money towards another cause or individual. And so while it's important to ask questions, it's also important not to judge. And it's important to kind of use discernment in these conversations, especially if you are suspecting that elder abuse is taking place with somebody that you care about, or somebody that is in your family or that's in your friend group, because you want to make sure that even if they're in a situation where they are possibly experiencing some form of cognitive decline, that they at least kind of are aware and can articulate the reasoning behind their changing in their decisions. And if they can't, what steps you can take to kind of help support that individual in being able to maybe recollect, trace their steps, or make a more informed decision in moments where they're lucid. So yes, elder abuse is a real big issue, and we want to make sure that we are supporting our elders by providing them with resources so that they can know how to avoid certain scams, especially in the age of technology, where you can get the wrong text message, you can get the wrong email, you can click on the wrong link online. Sometimes there are fraud or scams that are sent directly to the mail. And so depending on the means by which that individual performs their financial transactions or their banking, they may be more susceptible to a certain type of elder abuse, financial elder abuse, than the rest of the population or a younger population will. Certainly there are instances in my age where I can look at a text message that comes in, and because I have a banking background, I know, you know what, I shouldn't press this link, or I shouldn't call this number that is unfamiliar to me. Let me call the actual number that I know for this bank, or let me go on Google and search the number for this bank and call to make sure that the information that's being presented through text message is consistent with the information that they have behind the scenes. There have been instances where the bank has called me directly and I was not sure that this was the appropriate number. And so I said, you know, I'm gonna hang up and I'm gonna call back a more official number that I recognize or that I have on the back of my card or in my phone or on Google, just to make sure that this type of transaction or that this type of communication is legit. And unfortunately, in those instances, what I was realizing was that the individual was reaching out to inform me of maybe some potential fraud or some kind of irregularity in transactions. Maybe I'm traveling and I'm swiping my card in a different state than what is, you know, normal for my transactions, or in a different country than what is normal for my transactions. I can verify with that bank based off of what is a posted and known number, rather than some random number that it's claiming to be the bank. It's also important to recognize that a lot of the official organizations like the IRS or banks or you know, financial institutions are not going to be calling you and asking for you to give them your social security number or to give them your account number or what is known as personally identifiable information, or PII, because they know that scammers are going out, they're getting this information from people, and then they're posing as those individuals to commit fraud. So for instance, if we'll just pick a random bank, Wells Fargo reaches out to a customer and says, hey, there is some potential fraud on your account. We want to make sure that you are who you are supposed to be. Give us your social security number. That is not the type of thing that an official bank employee is going to ask for off the top. Usually bank employees will tend to ask for other information that is specific to the relationship with the bank. They might ask for the last 4 digits of an ATM or debit card number or credit card that you have with them. They might ask for a full account number coupled with your name, your full name and address as it appears on the system. They might ask for a series of the more recent transaction types, but they're not going to come straight out calling you and asking you, can you provide your social security number? But some people, when they get these kinds of phone calls or when they get these kinds of text messages or emails, don't know enough to inspect where is the email sender address coming from. It might appear as Wells Fargo, but when you click into the email address, it might show some at Yahoo address or some at Gmail address. And so it's important to inspect where is the source of these communications. Can you verify the source of these communications, whether it be a phone call, text message, or email? And in verifying, are they asking you for information that would not typically be asked for around social security number or outside of what is their normal operating procedure? So that is one very important step that I think we need to socialize more with the elderly populations, because they are often targeted due to cognitive decline or a possible cognitive decline due to being trusting and altruistic, maybe being confused around all of the new technology that is present, maybe not knowing how to perform certain banking transactions because it's different from the way that they are traditionally using banking. Maybe they don't understand secure elimination practices as it relates to financial documents that may have account numbers, name, address. It won't have social security number, but proper shredding and disposal of this personal information. Maybe they're not grabbing their mail fast enough. Maybe they are grabbing their mail, but the what is included in the mail is a scam or is fraudulent or is promising some big windfall related to loans or lines of credit or etc. Or maybe they trust an individual who is in their immediate circle, and that individual is steering them incorrectly with bad information that benefits that individual, but certainly doesn't benefit the target of that information. And while I'm sharing these best practices relating to elderly abuse, elderly financial abuse, it's important to also note that these practices are best practices for everybody, regardless of age, right? Some people, my generation, I'm a millennial, grew up with the internet. The Gen Z population and the Gen Alpha population, they grew up on the internet. So they're going to understand kind of intuitively more about the different social media platforms, how to navigate them, what are kind of the unwritten and written rules of navigating this technology, or the updates associated with certain phone models. Millennials, this demographic, we are going to we still kind of remember what life was like before the internet, what life was like before we made the switch. And so we're that last generation, we kind of have one foot in the door and one foot out the door. But the generations prior, they're the generations that still wrote checks. They're the generations that did not have social media, that maybe do not understand social media, that maybe were using email, but have one dedicated email for all of their emails. Or millennial or Gen Z might have 5 or 10 different emails and use those different emails strategically. And so the learning gap in the way that we perform our financial transactions, the way that we secure our information, the way that we share or don't share certain financial information in order to get access to things like credit or certain funding or certain forgiveness, how we file our taxes is, we're in the middle of tax season right now. Where we get that money deposited to, do we have bank accounts? Are we using fintech companies as banks? Are we using things like Cash App or Venmo or Zelle? What accounts do we have attached to that? What type of fraud does that open us up to? Are these companies prone to compromises, et cetera, et cetera? We're in a very new and different age. Every single day, things are changing. Technology is getting smarter and smarter and easier for us to use. And as an exchange, we are having to do less critical thinking about the way that we navigate our financial landscapes. And because of that, it does create a vulnerability in vulnerable populations, people who are not just, aware of the different changes and how rapidly those changes are occurring, or who are aware but just refuse to engage. They want to do things the way that they've always done them, and this is what they're comfortable with. They're stuck in their ways. And I can tell you, I remember as a former bank employee that there was a lot of effort put into educating a demographic of people who just wanted to do things the way that they've always done them. There was a lot of resistance in getting them to adopt the new technologies through mobile banking, through online banking, through ATM banking. They wanted to come in, they wanted to talk to a person, they wanted to write their checks. And in those instances, what my personal perspective on that kind of resistance to change opens that demographic of people up to those types of crimes or those types of fraud or scams, because it is more familiar to them to engage in this particular way. On the topic of kind of as an aside, through the lens of financial therapy and through the lens of behavioral finance and financial psychology, what's also happening today that wasn't happening 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago or more, is that more people are open to having conversations about their finances. They're open to having conversations about what's happening under the hood in their bank account. How does money make them feel? How certain situations are connected to the way that money makes them feel and or behave. And this is a new thing. This is something that has only recently become socially acceptable and socially encouraged. And so there may still be a population of people, there are certainly still a population of people who are holding on to kind of the old way of, well, I'm going to suffer in silence because I don't want everybody to know my business, or there's a shame or a guilt associated with what's going on under the hood financially, and they're in a position where they just want to figure it out. And so I think it's important as an educator, as a financial therapist, as a financial counselor, to make sure that I create space for individuals to feel comfortable where they are without feeling like they're going to be judged or guilted or shamed into engaging in a particular behavior, which may be counterintuitive to what it is that they know or what it is that they feel comfortable with, while also providing them with the tools and the education and the resources and the space to explore new concepts, new ideas, new technologies, new ways of doing things without feeling like they're being forced into that environment. And I think that is my big takeaway, or at least my big call to action in sharing with you, the viewer, the watcher, whether you are somebody who falls into the category of targeted elder abuse, or you are somebody who is a caretaker or a relative or a friend of somebody who is elderly, who navigates their finances in a particular way, or you are somebody who's interested in financial education and provides financial education for certain sensitive targeted audiences. It's important to understand creating space for them to make the change on their own without feeling like they're being forced to do so. So in that, financial elder abuse is a super important topic. I wanted to make sure that I touched on it this season because I've seen instances personally where individuals have given up their money because of some fraud or because of some scam, have not been able to recover that money, have felt deep shame or embarrassment because they fell for the scam, because they feel like they should have known better, because they feel like they should have done better. And they're just kind of wrestling with the guilt of not knowing. And when we as financial educators can do a better job at reaching out to those exposed or sensitive demographics, because it's most of the content that I see around financial education is geared towards younger people or kind of mid-age professionals who have made all of the mistakes and who have lived their life, but they still are in a place where they can be malleable to new things, and they're wanting to learn and they're wanting to change their behaviors. So this has been another episode of Financially Irresponsible. I'm your host, Rahkim Sabree, and I hope you learned something today. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.
Follow us on Instagram at nutmeg.tv.